Blessed is the man that endureth temptation. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able. Let me say that again. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation.
Death by temptation, interesting by creation. James Bond III's single feature film is Death by Temptation, a 1990 vampire/demon horror comedy that was distributed by Troma of all people. It features people you'll know like Radio Raheem, Dwayne from a Different World, and cameos by some guy called... hold on here. Samuel L. Jackson. Okay, seriously, this is probably Troma's biggest picture in terms of star power, as Troma almost never uses SAG actors. So what's the story about here? The biblical chosen one, Joel, played by writer and director James Bond III, loses his father to a mysterious accident. Before dying, his father sees great things surrounding his son. Great and terrible things. Things that cause car crashes. Things that eat men alive in the boroughs of New York City. Moving in and growing up with his grandmother, Joel pursues his title and ministry within the church. He has dreams to be a great preacher, like his father, but more, a world traveler. He also has nightmares about certain demons, beings that have been taking note of Joel's destiny by aspiration. While on a visit to see his childhood friend in New York City, Kay, Joel encounters the woman who has hounded his dreams and his destiny, and the battle for Joel's soul really begins. This is it. Will Joel conquer his fear and avoid the pitfalls many other men have met by wandering off the path of the righteous? Or will Joel end up just another victim with a death by temptation? So, given what I've described here, you would think that this is probably a moving story of religion and faith, centered on Joel and his struggles. No, not at all, nope. Joel is barely in the movie, so you might as well forget about him. Death starts up instead like a murder-by-the-numbers mystery, with a series of lecherous and otherwise negative men being picked up at bars and then eaten up by a mysterious monster lady. You know, speaking of religion, it was around the time I saw the gay guy being violated by the demon that I realized, oh, wait a second. This movie isn't just a monster movie with religious elements like, you'd see a cross in a vampire movie. Oh no. It's a full-on evangelical Christian movie wearing a horror movie mask. And you'll realize this if you look at who the victims of the demon are. Womanizers, adulterers, and a homosexual. So there you have lecherous people, negative people, and people who are innocent and are persecuted for the way that they are. This movie is a judgmental Christian saying, see, the sinners die in ironic ways. He got screwed to death, that's funny because he's gay. And the religious? Well, they succeed because they believe in old J-Man. The second the movie equates gays with abusive men, Death by Temptation becomes distasteful by implication. I take a lot of issue with what it does here, but I'm mainly here to tell you about the movie, not my morality. So we're gonna move on. So what's good about the movie? Well, it has great lighting, decent sets, some interesting scenes that play with editing to create shots with great composition and also to induce comedy. It's pretty effective. The actors all give good performances. Many scenes are centered on the characters just cutting up and chilling, which works and it does a great deal in making the story more involving and meaningful. I felt like Joel and Kay, the friends in the movie, were really friends, and it was nice to see an African-American movie with male bonding in the early 90s that wasn't a gang or a crime film. Death has this cool vibe to it, and it also really captures the essence of early 1990s New York, really well, too. The parts that the movie really gets right, though, are the horror scenes. The monster tale is fairly decent, too, if not that original. And speaking of not that original, the horror sequences are almost all, read between the lines here, pastiched from other movies. James Bond III is clearly a horror fan, and he has done his time on the movie-watching couch. There's even a Demon War poster in one scene. God, that's crazy. Still, when it is borrowing stuff, it's doing it really, 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 really well. The best horror scene is when a TV devours someone. It's equal parts Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 and Videodrome. And it's actually creepy. It really does cross the divide from amateurish copying movie to accomplished film. So I guess you could say it's delightful by imitation. You know, I would have loved to see something more original in the movie, but I guess the government cheese is gonna have to do. The worst parts of the movie are the slow parts, and the slow parts are the Joel-centric ones. And that's weird, but it also makes sense, and I'm about to get into why. So, it's weird because director, writer, creator James Bond III inserted himself into the lead role as Joel. So, you would expect that he does more, is the hero of the story, but no, not really. He is the Mary Sue chosen one of the prophecy, but he's also a dullard, a victim, and not much else. The other characters honestly all carry the movie near entirely. Actually, Joel and the religious angle feel like an amateurish side bit inserted into a much more competent Monster on the Prowl movie. And this is why, even though it's weird that he didn't do more of himself, it also makes sense. There's a problem with directing yourself as a lead in a movie. Usually, directors motivate actors and make them perform in scenes a little bit better than they think they're doing. Well, if you're directing yourself, you're not really going to tell yourself that you're doing a bad job. You really can't tell. It's not that, you're a bad director or a bad actor. It's just, I think, better to have a director that's someone other than the actor motivating them. They're different roles and they require different people, in my opinion, for a good movie to happen. Still, I didn't hate this movie. Even though it offended me a little bit, I understand the context it was made in, and I think it is decent horror that doesn't feel clunky or amateurish or limited by its budget. I have to give Death by Temptation 3 creepy Reagan statues out of 5. It's questionably preachy, competently copying from the greats, and it's not a horrible ride. So, giving into temptation and seeing this one won't cause you death.
All of these things are designed to frighten a monkey.